It's so wonderful to see all of you here today. Thank you for making the time to come to this first ever volunteer summit. And thank you for all of your loyalty and your support for Berkeley. This for me is a really exciting day because for the very first time, all this thinking and planning about the campaign and the campaign public launch seems very real. I'm going to talk today about what the campaign means for Berkeley. And that actually, the best way of understanding that is to think about our strategic plan. We approved a strategic plan in December of 2018. That was the first strategic plan that the campus had had since 2002, so it was long overdue, actually. And the way we approached the strategic plan was to ask ourselves 4 questions. And these were the 4 questions. What are the grand challenges that are important to the future of the state, our country, and the world, where Berkeley's faculty are particularly well situated to make a difference? The second question: what are the investments that we can make that would have the most impact on the quality of student experience? The third question: what's the right enrollment strategy for Berkeley? And the fourth question is: what is a new financial model for the campus? So let me tell you about what the answers, in brief, are to these 4 questions in the strategic plan, and then talk about the way the campaign connects to them. I'll first talk about the finance question. First of all, as I hope most of you know, our budget is now balanced. And precariously balanced, but balanced. And we are well on our way to a new financial model. We've gotten about halfway to a balanced budget through financial discipline and reductions in expenditure, and about halfway there through the multiplication and diversification of new revenue sources. And philanthropy is a critical piece of that, and I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. We're also involved a lot in financial reform, trying to make our finances more transparent and more rational than they had been before. So the finance question is an absolutely necessary foundation for the campaign, but except as it involves philanthropy, is not an objective of the campaign. The second, the enrollment question, you'll all be glad to know that we've determined that we are now a no-growth campus, that we're not going to take any more students, that we indeed, I think, are having trouble serving the students we have now. We've grown 30% since 2008 and not grown other aspects of our operation. Where we are increasing enrollments are in non-degree enrollments. That's summer session, university extension, that are an important and very fast-growing revenue source for us. Third, the third question we were seeking to answer was, of course, about the quality of student experience. And the most important thing we can do to enhance the quality of student experience is, actually, probably the most 5 important things we can do is housing, 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 and housing. We want to double the number of beds we have in our housing system in the next 10 years, and we're in active planning for that. We are going to build on a site we're calling the Gateway site. It's on the corner of Oxford and University. We're going to build on People's Park, and we're also going to be building on the Oxford Tract. We have to build on all the land we have to meet the housing crisis that our students experience, often in quite painful ways, every day. I talk a lot, when I talk about student experience, about the equity of experience. One of the most vivid impressions I've had in returning to Berkeley is how the experience of Berkeley is dramatically different for students who come from family backgrounds where they have generous resources and a lot of college-going experience in their families, and students who don't have those things. They often experience very, very different Berkeleys. And what we want to do is create more equity of experience for our students. That means financial aid. Our current financial aid packages don't really meet what the term is in the industry is the full cost of attendance. They don't really meet the full cost of attendance because of the very high cost of living in the Bay Area. And they don't, when students have to work, they often don't have the opportunities to do these life-changing things like study abroad, or internships, or most important, research with faculty, what we call discovery experiences, that students who have more latitude in just the way in which they're financing their educations have to do. So we are trying to create support for those transformational experiences and make it possible for every student in the course of his or her time here to do what we call a discovery experience, an experience of an independent project, either in the area of academic research or something more related to the arts or related to community service. And finally, what we're doing is increasing the number of navigation tools that we give to our students. This is a complicated place to navigate. I've had many alumni tell me that the most important thing that Berkeley gave them was the confidence that they could navigate a very complex organization and get what they needed. But we don't make it easy for all of our students, so we're creating a lot of new navigation tools, like our mandatory Golden Bear orientation, like a program called Berkeley Connect, which we're going to make available to all new freshmen and transfer students. That is basically an orientation and mentoring program that's taught by graduate students. And then finally, the grand challenges. These are the grand challenges that our faculty have identified as most important to the campus and ones where the campus is particularly situated to make a difference. One is climate change and environmental justice. A second is the future of human health. A third is the relationship of artificial and human intelligence. A fourth is the future of democracy, wealth, and inequality. And the fifth is entrepreneurship. And I'll be talking a little bit more about those later. So the strategic plan is the roadmap that will help us sustain Berkeley's excellence and indeed reach new heights in our contributions to the world. And the campaign is absolutely critical to realizing the goals that are laid out in our strategic plan. This campaign is quite different from past campaigns for Berkeley in the sense that it is about the core of what we do. In the past, we could rely on generous funding from the state. We no longer can rely on generous funding for the state. The state is only about 12% of our total budget currently. And so what that means is we have to create, as I said before, a new financial model. And part of that financial model involves philanthropy, not directed toward the nice-to-haves, but toward the very core excellences that make Berkeley great. The campaign is going to enable new investments in our core strengths in faculty, graduate and undergraduate students, academic and research programs, and facilities. The campaign is comprehensive. It's inclusive of needs and aspirations from across the campus and from all units. We're one Berkeley, and this will be a more integrated campaign than our campaigns have been in the past, but all the parts matter. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the context for the campaign. There is a difference between the strategic plan and the academic priorities of the campus and our campaign priorities. There are some priorities we have as a campus. Deferred maintenance is a good example, where we don't think it will make a compelling campaign priority. Although, if there's a donor in the room who really is inspired by deferred maintenance, please talk to me afterwards. But in addition to our campaign priorities, there are unit campaign priorities, and both are critical to the campaign. And the third point I want to make before I talk about the actual campaign priorities is the campaign priorities will change even after the launch on 2/29. The campaign priorities are not a shopping list, that they really are a reflection of our profoundest ambitions, but the way in which they are realized in gifts are a result of conversations between donors like you and the campus leadership. So let me tell you what the campaign priorities are. First, I always say this is the campaign priority that's most important to me, is expanding the size of the faculty. We have, as I said before, increased the size of our student body in the last 11 years by 30%. The faculty is exactly the same size as it was 11 years ago. And that is our most urgent need in terms of the quality of experience that we can offer our students, in terms of the new research areas, the new academic areas that we can explore. Adding positions to the faculty is critical. The faculty is the distinction of this institution. In addition, we will have a goal for graduate student fellowships, often because so many of our donors' experience here was as undergraduates. They may not fully understand how critical graduate students are to the excellence of Berkeley. Every faculty member that has a lab, that has a research program, depends upon the excellence of his or her graduate students to do really, really excellent pioneering research. That our graduate student support packages have become non-competitive with our private peers. It's the thing that I hear most often and most passionately from faculty. Please, please raise funds for graduate student support. It's essential to the way in which I imagine doing my work. I talked about our grand challenges. The faculty likes the term signature initiatives more than grand challenges. And they are the following. First, data science and artificial intelligence. Data science is changing our world. We have just created a division of data science. We have a new major in data science that's now about 1.5 years old. In the first month of after it was approved, 1,000 students declared their major in data science. It's really just an amazing major and program. We've hired a very exciting new dean, Jennifer Chase, who's coming to be the associate provost for data science and dean of the iSchool. This is the most important reorganization, academic reorganization of the Berkeley campus since the reorganization of biology in the late 1980s. It's transformational for us, and we'll be trying to raise money for it. I think everyone in this room understands how important the intellectual question is of the relationship between artificial intelligence and all the things that it can do and human intelligence. Second, signature initiative is the future of human health. We just celebrated an extraordinary new gift of $106 million to Berkeley, to UCSF across the Bay, and to the University of Washington as a kind of junior partner in degenerative neurological diseases. This is one of the areas that our faculty are deeply invested in. Other areas that our faculty are invested in are all of the enormous implications and uses of the CRISPR-Cas9 technology. So the future of human health is the second initiative area that our faculty have identified. The third is the environment, climate change, and environmental justice. I think we all see every day, particularly in California, the huge and often destructive impacts of climate change. It's an area that our faculty wants to study in a very focused way. Democracy and equality. It's an urgent time, I think, in our political life to be studying both income inequality and in relationship to democracy. And then finally, entrepreneurship and innovation. So in all of these areas, we will be looking for graduate student support. We'll be looking for clusters of these new faculty positions that we want to create to move us forward in these important areas. Third large campaign area is the undergraduate experience. As I said before, we need scholarships. Our financial aid packages no longer really adequately support our undergraduate students. We need more funding for basic needs. We have too many students that are food insecure and housing insecure. We have a very exciting project in Moffett Library. If any of you haven't toured the top 2 floors of Moffett, you should, because it's a kind of beehive of activity, often 24 hours a day. It's new collaborative study space for students. We want to transform the bottom 3 floors of Moffett in exactly that way. These are transformational for students and the student experience. What we find is that students want places to be during the day when they're on campus where they can do their intellectual work, both by themselves but also in groups. And then finally, we want to make Berkeley Connect, the program that I described before, universal for our incoming students, and we want to provide a discovery experience for all of our students. So those are our initiatives in the area of the undergraduate experience. And then finally, we have a number of capital projects in this campaign. One of them I've already mentioned, which is the Center for Connected Learning that will be in Moffett Library. Another is called, in the area of entrepreneurship, is the Baker Bioingenuity Hub. That is a tough tech space in our old art museum. It seems like an unlikely transformation, but it's going to be an extraordinary center for a combination of research in engineering and biology, that is incubator and accelerator space in collaboration with industry. We are building an addition to one of our chemistry buildings, Lewis Hall, that's Heathcock Hall. We have several housing projects that are philanthropically imagined. And then most important is to modernize and indeed seismically strengthen some of our STEM facilities. STEM is a real important distinction of the Berkeley campus, and it's critical that we modernize our facilities. And then finally, there's a gender equity campaign for beach volleyball and for softball. So I'm going to close by saying why you are all so critical. Aside from your philanthropic support of the campaign, You are our best advocates for articulating campaign priorities and for sharing an enthusiasm about the campaign with your friends, with your colleagues, with your neighbors. So we really, campaigns are as much about narratives as they are about the actual money we raise, and you are our great storytellers. You are the storyteller core for the Berkeley campus. I would like to introduce now the campaign co-chairs that are in the room. Susan Chamberlain. Charles Wong. Gordon Rouser. And Charles Giancarlo, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today. So thank you very much for your attention. And now I think I have a few minutes for questions if you'd like to ask questions. Yes?
Chancellor, is our campus affected by the housing shortage in such a way that we have a large number of homeless students? And if so, what kind of support mechanisms do you have for them?
The question was, what kind of support mechanisms do we have for homeless students? There is actually in this very building our Basic Needs Center, which is a model for colleges and universities across the country. It's the first, we're the first university that's created a comprehensive basic needs center that includes offices for county staff, for example, who have access, can complete the certification for food assistance programs for our students. But in answer to your question about homeless students, we have a number of counselors that work in the Basic Needs Center, and we have resources that are a combination of rooms as they become available in dorms, as well as hotel rooms that we use as a kind of bridging strategy for our homeless students as they find permanent housing. Students who are homeless tend to be homeless for a period of weeks, not permanently homeless, but that period of weeks is often a time of huge anxiety and difficulty for our students as they either can't find a place to live or the place that they are living turns out to be unsatisfactory in some way. So we help them through our Basic Needs Center with counselors who develop a housing strategy for all the students who come to them. Other questions? Yes.
So thank you so much. I don't think this is working. So thank you so much for outlining the vision of what the campaign is going to look like. And you mentioned sort of the dynamic nature of we're going to have to be able to shift some priorities around and sort of see what the next bump in the road is going to be. What do you, in your mind, think is going to be consistent and solid no matter what? And what do you think is sort of in that more dynamic space that we might have to navigate a little bit around, so that way we can help sort of guide, our advice in the best way we can?
Yeah, the large areas that I identified, growing the faculty, graduate student support, enhancing the undergraduate experience, those are absolutely core to the campaign and will continue no matter what. Building projects are complicated. There are a number of building projects for which we've already successfully completed the fundraising. One is the Baker Bioingenuity Hub, for example. There are 2 housing projects that we have essentially created, finished the fundraising for. I believe that the number one capital project in the campaign will be a building on the Tolman site, which is now empty. This gets a little bit too inside baseball, maybe, but we have a complicated seismic remediation problem together with we want to create better programmatic space for many of our programs. We have to begin with the empty square on the chessboard, and that's the Tolman site. We think that will be a building for data science. We think that there will be a big engineering project in this campaign. It's not quite determined what it will be. The Moffett project, we're in the course of fundraising for it. The Heathcock Hall, the chemistry project, is in the campaign. But Julie Hooper, our Vice Chancellor for Development, tells a story from when she was at Texas, and she says at the beginning of the campaign in which she participated in at Texas, they had no medical school, none was imagined, and they ended the campaign with a medical school. I'm not suggesting that we're going to end this campaign with a medical school, but just trying to make the point that campaigns are dynamic, and but that the core goals of this campaign, expanding the faculty, graduate student support, enhancing the undergraduate experience, and creating facilities that are better places for our faculty to do their research and for our students indeed to learn are going to be core to the campaign, even as things kind of ebb and flow. I have time for one more question. Yes? Can I give an update on People's Park? I don't think I speak to any audience where I don't get a People's Park question. We have hired an architect to design the student housing that is going to sit on about half of the park. We've hired a landscape architect that's going to design the park that'll be both a commemorative space and also a park. That's Walter Hood. He just won a MacArthur Genius Grant. And that we have found a not-for-profit partner that will develop the permanent supportive housing for the homeless. That'll be on about a quarter of the site, and that'll be about 125 permanent apartments for what will be formerly homeless individuals when they move into them. So that's the update on the park. Okay, well, thank you very much, and I think it's now time for the next part of our program.